if I may, just something quite remarkable, right? There's only 12 countries in the world that recognize Taiwan and not the Chinese regime, basically.
Paraguay is the largest one.
And Paraguay is the largest one. And I'm sure, recently you actually expelled a Chinese diplomat for
Yes.
agitating in the other direction.
Yes.
This is, I don't know, quite remarkable, I think. And just so explain to me why, and what you think about it.
It's remarkable when you don't understand where Paraguay is coming from. And I think this is my greatest desire for people to learn the story about Paraguay. This is a country that 5 centuries ago, 500 years ago, received the first flow of Spaniards that came to the continent. They first landed to the coast of Argentina, where is today Argentina, and they couldn't stay there, so they started, and the reason is because they found a very hostile indigenous community. So they began a journey through the river. Again, the river was the source to connection to the rest of the world. They called the Silver River. They were looking for silver and gold. And in the year 1537, they landed to a bay, and they founded that, and they said, we're going to remain here, and this will be the base of the operation. The reason of that, and remember, it was far away from the ocean. The reason why they decided to settle there is because they found a very friendly indigenous community, the Guaranis. So for 300 years, Asunción, our own capital, became the center of the colony. We were the first country to gain independence from Spain, the first one in 1811. Ahead of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Colombia, almost everywhere, Mexico. So we were an independent nation when many other countries were still responding to the influence of Spain. So from that moment on, the neighborhood became very, very hostile, to the point that 3 countries in the year 1864 declared the war against Paraguay: Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. And it was a war of extermination. We fought back for 6 years, and at the end of the war, we lost 60% of the territory and 90% of the male population. More than half of the entire nation was killed. So that was the history behind the rebuilding of Paraguay and why we lagged behind after being the most developed nation in Latin America in the 1800s. So when you look at the threat that Taiwan have to face because of the influence of China, or the threat that Israel have to face in a very tough neighborhood, we feel very identified. These are our own same fights that we have been fighting for many, many years. So this created this sense of resilience. Nobody's going to solve our problem. We need to make ourselves stronger. And you make stronger by investing in the people. The people is the one who is going to, at the end, preserve. I mean, remember, when no people was alive in Paraguay, it was a few Paraguayans who maintained the idea of being a nation. And the woman played a fundamental role in the rebuilding of the nation.
I mean, that's an incredible, absolutely incredible story. But you know that, of course, China has a huge influence all around you, right? And so, and obviously always trying to influence your country as well.
Influence our country and influence our surrounding countries also to exercise pressure on us. We are, of course, a country of only 6 million people, so we depend a lot on the international trade and the good relations that we have with many of the countries. And we are ready always to pay the high price for standing for the right causes. I mean, when the Russia-Ukraine conflict emerged in 2021, Russia was the second largest market for the beef export of Paraguay. So we took a very strong stance on defending Ukraine, and the beef market of Russia immediately closed to Paraguay. And we have to redirect, and we open other markets, and we work it, but we cannot put economic interests ahead of the values and the principles. Otherwise, the path is very, very complicated.
Mr. President, this is a rare phenomenon in this world.
I know, and we are more than willing to be more loud about these ideas. We think that, and I think that the President Trump is a great opportunity not only for the U.S., the Western Hemisphere, but for the entire world. I think that we need to try to bring a little bit of common sense, because this is nothing to do with ideology, right or left. This is common sense, basic common sense about the well-being of the people and how we respect the people and how we maintain our own principles and values. I mean, Paraguay society believe that life should be respected and protected from the inception. Abortion is forbidden in the Constitution. And we don't discriminate, but we understand that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. This is our understanding. We don't discriminate nobody for a different option, but the Constitution holds this as a fundamental value. And we have to pay a very high price in many periods of time, more recently. And we hope that this is now going to be one of the greatest strengths of Paraguay.
The United States, under President Trump, is very skeptical of many multilateral organizations. For example, he recently announced leaving the WHO, right? I know that Paraguay actually is quite involved in many multilateral organizations. And I also know that, let's say, China has significant influence in some of them. Some people even argue some of them are controlled.
Yes.
So how do you manage that difficulty?
I will strongly encourage the Trump administration not to give their back to the multilateral system, but to reshape the multilateral system. The current multilateral system that was designed and shaped after World War II, it was built on the image and the idea shaped by the US, UK, the Western ideas. But over the last 7 centuries, those ideas have been fading away. And with the intention of bringing more views, and we have given more space to countries that don't share the same principles and values, I think that these institutions have really diminished in their capacity to solve problems, because these institutions were built on the idea that we should not have a war anymore. There are more than 50 conflicts now. In this moment, there are more than 50 conflicts. It's not only Ukraine and Russia, it's not only the Middle East, it's not only the conflicts that we are seeing in the case of Haiti that nobody's talking about, but they're still living in a very fragile situation. So I would strongly encourage that the U.S. help to reshape this institution. Paraguay is proposing a candidacy for the Organization of American States. Next year, the Western Hemisphere will have the opportunity to appoint a national of the Western Hemisphere to be the head of the United Nations. This doesn't happen every year. We are choosing after 10 years, and I think it's going to be the chance for the Western Hemisphere after 5 decades. So this is a great opportunity that we need to get involved, and we need the strong leadership of the U.S. Now we can go back to the efforts that Secretary of State Henry Kissinger did convincing Mao to get closer to the Western world, to the incorporation of China to the WTO. And we can see a lot of the benefits, but I also see a lot of the threats, because they are not abiding to the same rules that we are abiding. And we are seeing now not only the Communist Party, who decided not to have free elections in China, but now we are having a leader in China who is going against the idea of making changes without the same system, within the same system. So I feel very, very concerned about the influence of China in all these institutions. And the only way that China will have more influence in this multilateral institution if we give them the space and the room. If the U.S. give the back to this multilateral system, then we're going to give more space to China.
You've already answered some of my next question, which is really about, the U.S., through some of President Trump's appointments, he's indicated that China is a major issue. The National Security Advisor, the Secretary of State. This is a big challenge. How can Paraguay and the U.S. work to contain that threat or stop it?
We are the blind spot in South America. We are the only country that is not under the influence of China. we have nothing against China. But we think that Taiwan deserves an opportunity. The same way Paraguay deserves an opportunity. We deserve an opportunity. So I think the idea behind Paraguay as a strong ally to show to other countries, because many of the countries in South America, many that I have spoken over the last couple of years, who decided to move from having a relation with Taiwan to have a relation with China, many of them felt on promises. A lot of the time, many of the leadership thought that having a relation with China will open the market, the huge Chinese market. And the reality has been quite the opposite. They have opened their market to a manufacturing capacity, an industrial capacity that doesn't comply with the same labor laws that we apply, that don't respond to the same environmental standards that we abide, that don't comply with the same AML regulation that we comply. So the rules are not even. And many of them said, look, I thought 5-10 years ago that if I was making this move, my country will be much more developed. And the reality is not that. It's quite the opposite. They are less developed. They rely more on manufactured goods from Asia and less on the capacity to create jobs in their own country. So that's why we have decided to follow a different path. A relatively small country that develop an industrial-based, high-quality products that are able to compete with any country of the world, including with China, because our largest trading partner is Brazil. And many of the industries that come to Paraguay came from Brazil, but they don't brought the job from Brazil. Brazilian companies that before that they were buying products from Asia. So they said, I'd rather buy it from next door. Having this idea of nearshoring or friendshoring, which I think it makes a lot of sense.
What do the Taiwanese think about you guys?
They think that we are very good friends. I have known them for many, many decades now. I went there in my early 20s. I was amazed about the history for what Chiang Kai-shek did and of course, how they have evolved from a dictatorship. It was at the beginning to a democracy, and how democracy was able to produce much better outcome. And this is our own history. Remember, we have to endure the longest dictatorship in South America, 35 years under a military regime. And now we have 36 years of democracy, and the results are astonishing better. We still have a long way to go, but the results are astonishing better.